The enormous citadel floated silently above the crimson clouds of Velthrixa Prime. Its towers curved like claws reaching into the sky, and inside its central hall, the alien dragon queen Velthrixa lay motionless. Her scales, once bright and glowing, had dulled to a pale, cracked silver. Even the softest breeze inside the hall carried the faint hum of her failing energy. Hundreds of dragons had gathered, their enormous bodies shaking with anxiety. Their leader, the Elder Council, hovered nearby, whispering urgent words, but nothing they did seemed to help. Every healer, every energy master, every expert from distant worlds had tried, and failed. Velthrix's life was slipping away like water through a broken vessel. Among the crowd of powerful dragons and alien experts, a human named Aaron Holt moved quietly along the observation corridor. He was small and unassuming compared to the immense beings around him. His uniform was simple, his tools basic, but his eyes were alert. Aaron worked as a maintenance engineer in the Citadel, responsible for monitoring energy conduits and repair systems. Humans were considered weak and irrelevant in galactic affairs, often overlooked by the mighty dragon species. Yet Aaron had always been curious, noticing details others ignored. As he watched Velthrixa struggle, he realized something the others had missed. The queen's condition was not just a matter of injury or illness. Her energy field, the powerful resonance that defined her life, was unstable. It pulsed unevenly, creating stress in her body and mind. Dragons were strong, yes, but they could not adapt when their own power turned against them. Humans, however, had evolved differently. They were fragile in strength, but resilient in ways dragons did not understand. Aaron had read the records of human survival, of species that endured famine, disease, and disaster. Perhaps there was a way for a human to do what all dragons had failed to achieve. He kept these thoughts to himself for now, moving along the corridor to check the monitoring panels. The hall fell silent as Velthrix's massive eyes opened, glowing faintly like dying stars. She looked at the crowd, not with anger or pride, but with exhaustion. Her voice, deep and vibrating, filled the chamber. "I have lived 1,000 cycles," she said. "I have faced enemies beyond counting. Yet I cannot survive this." The dragons whispered among themselves, fear and sorrow written in every line of their enormous faces. A few attempted to offer energy, merging their own life force with hers, but each effort ended in failure. Her energy tore at theirs, burning and scattering into the air. Even the Elder Council stepped back, their ancient faces pale with worry. Aaron watched closely, noticing the pattern in the failing energy. Every attempt to force the queen's power to stabilize caused more harm. It was as if she was trapped in her own strength, unable to control it. The other species only knew how to push, to dominate, to force the energy back into order. But perhaps it needed something else, something gentle, something unexpected. Aaron could not act openly. He was a human, and humans were not allowed to interfere in dragon affairs. Any attempt would be met with anger, even hostility. But a small thought grew in his mind. Maybe, just maybe, a human could succeed where the greatest dragons had failed. As he reviewed the monitoring panels, Aaron noticed a strange resonance spike. It was subtle, a faint rhythm hidden beneath the overwhelming energy. It matched patterns he had seen in human biology, the way the human nervous system handled stress. His heart raced as he realized the possibility. What if the queen needed not power but balance? What if she needed a being capable of absorbing and redistributing the strain instead of overpowering it? Dragons had never known such weakness as strength. Humans had survived by turning weakness into endurance. The crowd grew restless. Velthrixa struggled to rise, her enormous body trembling. "I cannot wait much longer," she said, her voice breaking. The dragons shifted nervously, unsure what to do next. Outside the windows, storm clouds raged, reflecting the turmoil inside. Aaron's hands moved over the panels, testing simulations and minor adjustments. He felt the rhythm of her energy, fragile and desperate. No one else noticed. No one else tried to understand. Suddenly, a dragon healer shouted, "We must force the energy through the stabilizers. If we do not, she will." His words ended as another pulse of chaotic energy threw him back. The chamber shook and smaller dragons squealed, some hiding behind the columns. Velthrix's body lifted slightly off the platform, energy swirling violently around her. The queen looked down at her failing stabilizers, fear in her ancient eyes. She had survived wars, betrayal, and cosmic catastrophes, yet now she could do nothing to save herself. Aaron's mind raced. The stabilizers, the forced energy, the attempts to dominate her power, they all failed because they ignored what she truly needed. She needed someone who could endure the imbalance without collapsing. He thought of himself, human, fragile, small, but capable of resilience. A plan began to form, daring and reckless. He could not announce it, could not ask for permission. If anyone knew what he was thinking, they would stop him immediately. But he did not hesitate. The Queen's life depended on it. Velthrix's gaze met his from across the chamber. For a brief moment, it felt as if she understood his silent determination. She was too proud to ask for help from a human, yet perhaps, somehow, she had chosen him without words. Aaron felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The entire galaxy expected her death. Every dragon, every expert, every observer assumed that nothing could save her. And yet, in that hall, among the fear and despair, a single human quietly prepared to do the impossible. The room held its breath. Velthrix's energy pulsed violently, the sound like a storm in the sky. She trembled, her massive wings brushing against the walls, barely able to stay upright. The Elder Council murmured, their faces pale, their ancient minds racing through centuries of failed solutions. Aaron took a deep breath, steadying his nerves. One human, one mind, one plan. Perhaps it was enough. Perhaps it was the only thing that could succeed. As he stepped forward, unnoticed among the crowd of titanic dragons, he whispered to himself, "I will not fail." The Queen's eyes, dim and tired, focused on him. In that instant, the impossible seemed possible. For the first time in 1,000 cycles, the alien dragon queen was not alone. The Citadel's hall buzzed with tension. Velthrixa, the alien dragon queen, lay trembling on her platform, her massive body shivering as her life force wavered like a flickering flame. The dragons around her were restless, wings flexing, tails lashing, eyes glowing with panic. The Elder Council, the wisest of their kind, hovered close, murmuring urgent commands. They sent wave after wave of energy at her, trying to stabilize her collapsing resonance field. Each attempt failed, throwing the queen into more pain. Her scales cracked further, revealing glimpses of glowing veins beneath, and her roar of frustration shook the hall. Aaron Holt, the human systems engineer, watched quietly from the observation corridor. He had seen the chaos, the fear, and the pride of dragons collide in ways humans could not fully understand. Humans were small, weak, and fragile compared to these enormous creatures, and no one expected them to act in matters of life and death among dragons. In fact, humans were largely ignored by the galaxy's elite. They were maintenance staff, helpers, servants, and that was it. The dragons, the council, and the healers had not asked a human to help. They had not even considered it. Aaron studied the Queen's energy patterns on his monitor. Every spike, every collapse, every pulse of instability told the same story. Velthrix's life was being torn apart not by injury or illness, but by her own power. Dragons were strong, but they were not flexible. They could dominate energy, absorb energy, but when energy turned against them, they had no shield. Humans were different. Humans endured, adapted, and survived when everything went wrong. Aaron had no formal training in dragon energy manipulation, but he understood something critical. Brute force would kill her faster. The Queen needed balance, not control. The chamber shook as the Elder Council spoke. "We must act now," one of them commanded. "Her energy will collapse within cycles if we do not push more stabilizers." Another counselor disagreed, suggesting they siphon her power into secondary cores. Both plans failed to impress Velthrixa. Her eyes, dim yet aware, flicked toward the human on the corridor. For a moment, it seemed as though she acknowledged him silently. Her species had long since stopped believing humans could matter. Perhaps now, unknowingly, she had recognized the one being who could. The council debated furiously. "We cannot allow her to die," said one elder. "If the Queen perishes, alliances will shatter. Entire sectors will erupt in war." Another elder added, "We have tried every method known to our species. Nothing works. We are powerless." The dragons around them hissed and growled. Their pride clashed with their fear. Every species present assumed that failure was inevitable. And every species, except one, ignored the possibility of the human. Aaron adjusted his panels, his fingers moving over touchpads, connecting circuits and running simulations. No one noticed him. No one paid attention to the small human quietly scanning the Queen's resonance. He had no weapons, no exotic energy modules, no cosmic knowledge. He had only human ingenuity, observation, and patience. He remembered the stories of his ancestors. Humans surviving storms, fires, sickness, and famine. Their survival depended on endurance, creativity, and stubbornness. That was something dragons had never developed. Humans could endure what dragons could not. Humans could persist when everything collapsed. The Queen's energy pulsed violently, and a low roar escaped her throat. The stabilizers in the hall shivered and cracked. The council's attempts to force energy into her body were making her weaker, not stronger. A wave of panic ran through the crowd. Smaller dragons squealed and scuttled back, hiding behind the columns. Some tried to flee, unable to watch the queen's agony. The council debated another plan, louder this time, their voices echoing through the chamber. But Aaron had already seen the truth. The council was using only methods their species understood. That was the problem. He leaned closer to his monitor. The queen's energy spikes were chaotic but patterned. The resonance was alive, reacting to influence in ways he had never seen dragons consider. It was not a problem to be crushed or forced. It was a problem to be carried, distributed, and shared. Aaron felt a strange confidence rise in him. He could not explain it fully, but he knew a human could survive the strain that would destroy any dragon. He thought of his body, small and weak but designed for endurance. He thought of his nervous system, able to absorb shocks, recover, and adapt. Perhaps this was why he mattered. Perhaps this was why a human could succeed. The council finally realized their failure. "Nothing works," one elder shouted. "Her energy rejects us." Another added, "She will die within cycles." The chamber fell into stunned silence. Velthrix's body trembled with exhaustion. Her wings drooped and her head hung low. She had survived wars, betrayals, and cosmic storms, yet now she could do nothing. Aaron knew the moment had come. He could not wait for permission. None would give it, and if they did, it would be too late. The queen's life depended on immediate action, on someone willing to step into the impossible. He stood, small but determined, and moved toward the platform. Dragons hissed at him, trying to stop him, but he ignored them. The council's ancient voices rose in protest, yet no one could truly understand what he intended. Velthrixa lifted her head slightly. Her faintly glowing eyes met Aaron's. There was no command, no plea, only recognition. She knew humans were weak, but she also knew this human would do what others could not. He was small, fragile, and untested, yet he possessed something the dragons lacked: resilience, patience, and the ability to endure what could not be controlled. Aaron whispered to himself, steadying his hands and heart. "I will not fail. I have to try." The room seemed to pause. Every observer, every dragon, every council member held their breath. The galaxy expected her death. Every expert assumed nothing could save the queen. And yet, here was a single human quietly preparing to do what no dragon ever could. Outside the citadel, the storms raged against the crimson clouds, reflecting the chaos inside. The queen's energy pulsed violently, threatening to tear itself apart. The council shivered, powerless to act. And Aaron, unnoticed, stepped closer to the dying monarch, ready to challenge what everyone believed impossible. For the first time in countless cycles, the alien dragon queen was not alone. A human was about to defy the expectations of an entire galaxy. Aaron stepped onto the platform, his small human frame dwarfed by the enormous body of Velthrixa. The air around her shimmered with unstable energy, crackling and pulsing like a storm trapped in crystal. The dragons in the chamber hissed and recoiled, their instincts warning them to stay back. The elder council shouted, warning him to retreat, but he ignored them. He had no weapons, no advanced energy devices, no alien technology. All he had were human hands, a few simple tools, and his understanding of survival. He studied the queen's trembling form. Her energy surged in chaotic waves, pushing outward and striking anything that came near. Every dragon that had tried to stabilize her had been thrown back, burned, or overwhelmed. But Aaron noticed something they had missed. The energy did not resist connection, it resisted force. Every attempt to dominate or channel it had failed because the queen's power was alive and independent. It needed a carrier who could endure, not overpower, who could survive what would destroy even the strongest dragon. Aaron took a deep breath and activated a small device he had built secretly over the past few cycles. It was crude, made from recycled human tech, old energy conduits, and bioadaptive circuits. No dragon would have trusted it. The Elder Council stared, eyes wide, as he placed the device near Velthrixa. A faint hum began, and the energy around the queen seemed to hesitate, pulsing slower. Aaron adjusted the controls carefully, his fingers moving faster than the eye could follow. Each adjustment was a tiny redistribution, a subtle balancing act. The chamber grew tense. Some dragons hissed, others growled, certain that a human would fail and make everything worse. "Stop him!" one counselor shouted, flapping his massive wings in anger. But Velthrixa did something unexpected. Her head rose slightly, her glowing eyes focusing on Aaron. She did not move aggressively. She did not roar. For the first time she allowed a human to approach her. She did not understand why she trusted him, but instinct told her that humans could endure what dragons could not. Aaron placed his hands on the device and then carefully on the queen's forearm. The moment he made contact, a shock of energy passed through him. Pain burned through his nerves, and for a heartbeat he felt as though he were being pulled apart. But he did not flinch. His body absorbed the pulse, spreading the energy through his nervous system. His heart pounded, muscles trembled, and sweat ran down his face, but he remained steady. He had prepared for this, understanding that the human body could endure shocks far longer than even the strongest dragon's energy field could destroy. The queen's energy began to stabilize around him. It was chaotic, alive, and dangerous, but it did not push him away. Aaron felt the rhythm of her life, violent yet beautiful, and he worked carefully to redistribute the strain. Every adjustment was subtle, every movement precise. He was not forcing power, he was guiding it, carrying it, becoming a bridge. The dragons watched in stunned silence. Many had never imagined a human could survive this. They had underestimated the species entirely. Small energy surges shot out in random directions, scattering sparks across the chamber. One young dragon hissed and flinched back, afraid the queen's body would explode. But Aaron held firm, keeping the energy steady. His mind raced, calculating, adjusting, balancing. For the first time, a human was controlling what no dragon had ever controlled. It was not strength that mattered, but endurance, patience, and understanding. Aaron's human mind, accustomed to survival against impossible odds, became the stabilizer the galaxy had never known. The queen's massive wings quivered as her body slowly rose from the platform. Her breathing, once ragged and shallow, began to deepen. The energy around her, once wild and dangerous, now hummed in a steady rhythm. Aaron felt every pulse, every surge, every chaotic fluctuation. The pain was immense, but he welcomed it. He understood that survival required sacrifice. Dragons had never evolved to absorb instability, they could dominate, destroy, or flee, but humans had evolved to endure. As he worked, he whispered softly, partly to calm himself, partly in instinct. "I've got you. I won't let go. We'll get through this." The queen's eyes, faintly glowing, met his, and for a moment, a silent understanding passed between them. She had never trusted a human before, but now she did. Her life depended entirely on this fragile, small creature that the galaxy had overlooked. Every dragon present felt a new and strange emotion, awe. Minutes stretched like hours. Aaron's muscles ached, his fingers trembled, and his vision blurred, but he did not stop. The queen's energy had stabilized enough to no longer lash outward destructively. Sparks continued to flare, but they no longer threatened immediate destruction. He adjusted the device, spreading the chaotic pulses evenly across his human body. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for either disaster or miracle. Finally, the violent surges began to calm. The queen's chest rose and fell more steadily. Her massive head lowered slightly, no longer trembling violently. The faint glow of her veins returned to a steady shimmer. The device emitted a soft hum, blending with the now stable energy of the queen. Aaron collapsed to his knees, exhausted, his body shaking from the strain. The dragons around him stared in shock. They had witnessed the impossible, a human carrying the energy of the dragon queen without breaking. Velthrixa slowly lifted her head, her eyes brighter, stronger. She inhaled deeply, wings stretching for the first time in cycles. The chamber felt alive again, not with danger, but with balance. She looked at Aaron, and though she could not speak, a gesture passed between them. Gratitude, respect, recognition. She had survived, not through her own power, but because of a human. A being small, fragile, and underestimated by the galaxy had done what dragons could not. The Elder Council, once proud and confident, remained silent. Their ancient minds struggled to understand what they had seen. Humans, a species they had dismissed for centuries, had succeeded where the galaxy's greatest had failed. The queen had been saved by endurance, not strength, by understanding, not force. And Aaron, panting, trembling yet alive, had done the impossible. Outside the citadel, storms raged against the crimson clouds, reflecting the chaos that had passed inside. The queen's energy now pulsed steadily, no longer dangerous or unstable. The dragons around her, once panicked, now bowed slightly as if acknowledging a new order. And Aaron, a human among giants, realized that what he had done was more than survival. It was proof that humans could face the impossible and endure where no other species could. For the first time, the galaxy would see that humans were not weak. They were endurance, adaptation, and resilience made flesh. And the Dragon Queen, once believed doomed, owed her life to one small, determined human. Aaron lay on the platform, trembling and soaked in sweat. His body ached as if every bone and muscle had been pushed beyond human limits. His hands were still pressed against the Queen's arm, holding the stabilized energy carefully, like cradling a fragile storm. The chamber was silent, except for the low hum of her energy now flowing evenly. Velthrixa, the alien Dragon Queen, looked at him, her massive eyes glowing softly. She had survived, fully alive, because of a human. For the first time in countless cycles, she did not feel the crushing weight of despair. The Elder Council hovered nearby, their huge wings folding as they watched in disbelief. Every member of the council had tried to stabilize the Queen's energy in their long lives. Each had failed. Yet here was a human, small, fragile, and unarmed, holding steady where dragons could not. They could not understand it. One elder stepped forward, his voice trembling. How did you endure that? Aaron struggled to stand, his knees weak and shaking. I just held it, he said simply. I didn't fight it. I let it flow. I carried it instead of trying to control it. His words were quiet, almost humble, but they carried weight that no dragon could ignore. He had survived because humans were built to endure the impossible, to carry burdens others could not. Humans could face danger without panic, could absorb shocks that would destroy the strongest creatures, and could adapt when the world turned against them. Velthrixa slowly stretched her enormous wings, their span nearly filling the hall. Her energy pulsed in steady waves, calm for the first time in cycles. She tilted her massive head and regarded Aaron with a mixture of gratitude and awe. Dragons had always relied on strength and power. They crushed their problems, dominated energy, and used force to survive. But humans? Humans had no overwhelming power. They survived by enduring what could not be overcome, by turning weakness into advantage. Aaron had done what no dragon could imagine possible. The chamber remained silent as the Queen rose fully, towering over everyone. Her body was enormous, covered in silver and pale scales that now shimmered faintly with renewed energy. You carried my burden, she said, her voice deep and trembling but clear. You held what my kind could not. What? You are small, fragile, untrained in our ways. Aaron shook his head, exhausted but steady. I didn't think about that. I just did what had to be done. You needed balance, not force. I can endure what others cannot. Humans survive by facing what seems impossible, even when everything is against us. The Queen's eyes widened slightly. She had ruled countless worlds, defeated enemies stronger than any she had seen, yet she had never thought of endurance as a weapon. Strength, aggression, and dominance had always been the way of dragons. But humans could endure pain, fear, and chaos without breaking. They could persist when everything collapsed. That was something dragons had never understood. That was why this human had saved her. The council murmured among themselves, their massive heads turning toward Aaron. They had long underestimated humans, dismissing them as weak, irrelevant, and incapable of real power. Yet here was living proof that humans were not weak. They were endurance, resilience, and adaptation in one fragile body. One human had done what an entire species of immortal, powerful dragons could not. Velthrixa lowered her massive head so that she could look Aaron in the eyes. I owe my life to you, she said. Not to force, not to power, but to you. You carried what no dragon could. You endured. Aaron nodded, exhausted but proud. He had not done it for recognition or reward. He had done it because it had to be done. Humans survived by action, by courage, by endurance, not by expectation or glory. The smaller dragons in the chamber whispered among themselves, their eyes wide with awe. If a human could survive this, if a human could carry the Queen's chaotic energy without breaking, what else could humans do? The idea spread quickly, slowly replacing fear and doubt with something new: respect. Humans were not pawns. Humans were not weak. Humans were built for moments like this, for carrying burdens no one else could bear. Velthrixa flexed her claws slowly, feeling the stabilized energy course through her body. The room was calm now, the storm inside her finally at peace. She realized that the galaxy had overlooked an entire species. Humans, small and fragile, could do what dragons, aliens, and advanced civilizations could not. They could endure the impossible. They could persist where others failed. And now, the Queen owed her life not to a council, not to her own power, but to one human. Aaron took a deep breath, finally letting go of her arm. His hands were trembling, his vision blurred, but he had succeeded. The chamber seemed to vibrate with quiet awe. Dragons, once proud and dismissive, looked at him differently now. Respect replaced disbelief. Fear turned into admiration. A human, unarmed and underestimated, had changed the course of events through nothing but endurance, courage and understanding. Velthrixa lowered herself onto a platform nearby, still massive but steady. She studied Aaron, considering what this meant for her species and the galaxy. Dragons had always measured worth by strength. Now she understood that endurance, resilience and understanding could be far stronger. One small human had carried her through the impossible and lived. One human had changed what dragons believed about survival. Outside the citadel, storms still raged against the crimson clouds, but inside, calm reigned. The queen's energy flowed evenly, no longer chaotic, no longer destructive. The galaxy had witnessed something remarkable. A human had done what no dragon could. And slowly word would spread. Not because of force or war but because of endurance. Humans had survived the impossible, and in doing so, they had rewritten the expectations of every species that had underestimated them. Aaron, exhausted, looked around at the dragons and the council. He did not feel pride, only quiet satisfaction. He had survived. He had done what no one else could. And in doing so, he had shown the galaxy something new. Humans were built for the impossible, capable of carrying burdens no one else could bear, and enduring what even the strongest could not. Velthrixa extended a massive claw, resting it lightly on his shoulder. It was a gesture of gratitude and acknowledgement. "You have changed my life, human," she said. "You have changed the way I see my world. You have changed the way I see your kind." Aaron nodded weakly. He had done what humans were always meant to do: endure, adapt, survive and achieve what others thought impossible. Velthrix's massive wings stretched slowly, filling the chamber with their enormous shadow. The energy that had once threatened to tear her apart now flowed calmly, harmonized by Aaron Holt, the small human who had dared to touch the impossible. The dragons around her, including the Elder Council, hovered quietly, their eyes wide and unblinking. They had never seen a human do such a thing. They had never imagined it possible. And yet here he was, exhausted, trembling but alive. The queen had survived and the galaxy would never forget it. Velthrix's gaze fell upon Aaron, massive eyes soft but intense. She could feel the truth of it. Humans were nothing like dragons, nothing like other powerful species of the galaxy. They were fragile, yes, and their bodies were weak in comparison. But they endured. They carried burdens, faced dangers, and persisted when everything seemed hopeless. The queen, ruler of countless worlds, had never relied on anyone else's resilience in this way, and now she understood that humans could endure what no dragon could survive. The council whispered among themselves, their massive heads turning toward one another. "We underestimated them," said one elder in a quiet, almost reverent tone. "All this time we thought humans were weak. We thought they could never matter." Another counselor added, "They survive because they endure. They survive because they persist. That is a power we have never had." Velthrixa nodded slowly. The words were true. Humans were more than their bodies. They were courage, ingenuity, and endurance made flesh. Aaron struggled to stand fully. His body shook from the strain of carrying the queen's chaotic energy, but he did not fall. The smaller dragons watched him with a mixture of awe and curiosity. He had no rewards, no weapons, no advanced powers. He had only his human body, mind, and heart. And yet that had been enough to save the dragon queen. Velthrixa lowered her massive head until it was almost level with him. "You have changed the balance of my world," she said softly. "And not just my world, the galaxy will never see humans the same way again." Outside the citadel, storms raged, crimson clouds swirling in violent patterns. But inside, a quiet order had returned. The queen's energy hummed steadily, flowing like a calm river instead of a violent storm. The dragons could feel the change. They understood, in ways they never had before, that force was not the only way to solve problems. Endurance, patience, and adaptation could triumph where strength failed. Humans were proof of that truth. Aaron looked at Velthrixa and shook his head weakly. "I didn't do it for glory," he said. "I just did what had to be done. You needed someone who could endure, and that was all I could give." The queen regarded him silently. No other species could have survived what he had survived. No other species could have carried her chaotic energy without breaking. She had been saved by humanity itself, and she would never forget it. Word of what had happened spread quickly. Smaller dragons whispered among themselves, then larger ones, and finally the council made announcements across the galaxy. Humans were no longer to be dismissed as weak. They had shown courage where others failed. They had endured where others broke. They had achieved the impossible. Slowly, the perception of humanity began to change. Other species began to ask for human involvement in difficult matters, in ways they had never imagined. Velthrixa turned to the council and addressed them formally. From this day forward, humans are no longer seen as insignificant. They have proven that they can do what no dragon, no alien, no species can achieve. They have endured the impossible. They have saved a life that should have been lost. Their presence in the galaxy is not a weakness but a strength. Humans are balance bearers and their role will be honored. The council members bowed deeply, some reluctantly, some in awe. They had lived for centuries and yet they had never seen anything like this. They had thought the galaxy's rules were absolute. They had thought strength ruled all. And yet, one small human had rewritten the rules with nothing but endurance, courage, and understanding. Aaron, still weak, was helped to his feet by Velthrix's massive claw, which rested gently on his shoulder. "You risked your life for me," she said. "You carried what no dragon could. You have done what the galaxy believed impossible. For that, I owe you more than gratitude. I owe humanity a place in my world, a place in the galaxy's future." Aaron shook his head again, still humble. "I don't need a place. I just hope humans will be seen for what we are. We endure. We persist. We survive. That is all we do and that is enough." The queen regarded him and in her eyes, he saw a spark of understanding that stretched beyond words. Humans had earned respect not by power or dominance, but by simply being what they were meant to be. The dragons around them had begun to murmur among themselves. The Elder Council's voices, once full of pride and certainty, now held respect and wonder. "Perhaps we judged the humans too harshly," one elder admitted. "Perhaps endurance is the greatest power of all." Others nodded. Velthrix's energy now pulsed in steady waves, and she felt something she had never felt before. Hope, not just for herself, but for the future of her species in a galaxy that had always overlooked humans. Aaron stepped back, exhausted, yet a quiet satisfaction filled him. He had done what no dragon, no council, and no advanced species could do. He had faced the impossible and endured. He had saved a life that should have been lost. And he had done it not through force or power, but through understanding, patience, and resilience. Velthrixa lowered herself fully onto the platform. "You have changed the galaxy, human," she said. "Not through domination, not through war, but through what you were built for: endurance, courage, and persistence. The galaxy owes you. The galaxy owes your species." Aaron nodded, finally letting his body relax. He had no desire for fame, no need for rewards. Humanity would continue, small and fragile, but strong in ways no one else could comprehend. The Queen's life had been saved, and in doing so, humans had earned their place in the galaxy. From that day forward, whenever a problem seemed impossible, the question would no longer be, "Who is strongest?" The question would be, "Has a human been asked?" The storms outside the citadel slowly began to fade, crimson clouds breaking into streaks of calm light. Inside, the Queen's energy pulsed steadily, and the dragons of the galaxy had learned a lesson they would never forget. One small human, underestimated and overlooked, had done the impossible. And the galaxy, forever changed, owed a debt to humanity that could never be repaid. Aaron, exhausted but alive, looked around the chamber one last time. He had faced the impossible, endured it, and survived. He had saved the Queen. And in doing so, he had shown the galaxy that humans were not weak, not insignificant, and not disposable. Humans endured, humans persisted, and humans could achieve the impossible. That was the gift the galaxy had never seen, and now it could never ignore.